Wes-tone here. In this video, we're going to look at Kaspa. We're going to do a quick update before the holiday break and show you the few things I've been looking at, a few of the things I've been thinking lately. So first of all, I have been working on the Wealth Cycles channel. I've been working on a huge introduction video, going pretty deep. I do have a brief introduction video, but this one goes a lot deeper and is much more all-encompassing, and I think implements some novel viewpoints. The Kaspa isn't really necessarily part of the wealth cycle strategy, but it is part of the broader the strategy, with crypto being kind of the biggest and best macro opportunity. And so we're just trying to hone in on the tip of that point. So we're going to look at Kaspa here and check out a few things. I've kind of roughly drawn in the Power Law corridor. This is using the May origin date. We've been talking about which origin date is best for calculating the Kaspa Power Law, because that has a pretty huge effect on not only its outlook, but its scale invariance. And using some of the other calculations, like the Kaspa rainbow chart here, this uses the November of 2021 origin date, which is why it seems to sort of be breaking its scale invariance. And that's a pretty significant deal. Time will tell how this holds up, but it's pretty clear that the scale invariance isn't holding up on this chart. Chancellor here in this Medium article talks about what it would look like if we had the incorrect origin date. So give this a read. Again, this is not my area of expertise, the whole power law thing. I'm trying to learn and keep up and just reporting back kind of where my headspace is at the moment. I've been running my own numbers on the power law calculation. Let's see, here's the November of 2021. And you can see it kind of has an arc to it. And you can kind of almost see that in the power law chart itself. This chart at the bottom is the basically percent of fair value. And the fact that it has an arc in it tells us that our origin date is likely incorrect. It appears to be a much better fit using the May of 2022 origin date. And if I take the percent of fair value chart here and I do a linear regression on this data, what I would want to see is that red linear regression line to be perfectly centered, perfectly flat, right at 100%. And that's basically what we see here. It has an R squared of 0, and it's just barely above 100%. So that's like a very, very good fit. The R squared of the original chart here is 0.956, which is also very good. And I reposted some work that Hayoko did. He's showing the R squared and the Kaspa exponent over time using various origin dates. So here he's got the November 7th, which is the standard origin date that everybody's using. And the R squared is starting to come down. The exponent has been coming down. Doesn't look like a lot on these charts, but if you kind of compress them horizontally, you can see the change is happening more and more rapidly. He also did the same analysis on the May 2022 origin date, which seems to be an increasingly good fit according to its R squared. He zoomed in on that chart here, and you can see how the fit is increasingly better and better, as well as the exponent here. So check that out. I reposted this chart here that I just showed you. All of this is basically making it appear that the May origin date is the better origin date, and that kind of makes sense because of changes in the protocol that happened in May of 2022, and the recent changes in protocol with the increased fees due to KRC20 appear to be accounted for in this model. So far it's holding up well. The problem I have with this model is that if you extrapolate out this power law trend line out into the future, you can calculate when will Kaspa fair value hit $1 trillion in market cap. And I calculated that will not happen until as late as 2049, potentially. Sometime around 2045, 2049. That's like 25 years out, which in crypto world seems like an eternity. And that basically also means that it'll never probably hit a number 2 market cap. So check my calculations on that, but that strikes me as kind of a bearish scenario. I think there's still, and from my perspective, I think there's still a great opportunity to trade between between fiat, Bitcoin, and Kaspa. Kaspa also seems to be entirely uncorrelated. You can see the correlation chart here, basically entirely uncoordinated to the altcoin market or Bitcoin. And this is the others market, so this would be the broader altcoin market. You can see very uncorrelated, even less so to Bitcoin compared to something like HBAR, which has been my favorite proof of stake network. You can see that the correlation is almost always above at least 0.75. It's riding this top line here, meaning a positive correlation. And that's about 5 years of data there, with only brief periods where it diverges. So you can see this is what most other cryptocurrencies have, this correlation with the others market or even with Bitcoin. I can change this to Bitcoin. This is correlation coefficient. You can see most of the time it's a pretty strong correlation with the exception of a few periods. Again, Kaspa on the weekly chart since June, we've had essentially absolutely zero correlation. So that's interesting from a portfolio balancing point of view. We're entering alt season now, but I kind of have a feeling that Kaspa's not going to participate as cleanly as others might during this part of the cycle for this reason. But that's not financial advice, and make of that what you will. Going back to the origin date, I should also bring this up too. Crypto Proselyte has done some analysis on Kaspa's Power Law regressions, and this shows the Power Law correlation of Kaspa's hash rate, which also follows a very strong 0.96 R squared. But this uses the November of 2021 origin date. And he's done some other charts here that I wasn't able to find that show the difference between the hash rate, Power Law using various origin dates. And there has been some discussion on why that would be. Mostly, I think it comes down to the change in the underlying protocol that Kaspa has, which is a little bit different, behaves a little bit different than Bitcoin. And again, I'm kind of going outside of my area of expertise here. It's why I'm trying to follow the conversation on X. So moving forward, so right now, Kaspa is trading at just under 12 cents. You can see by this chart here that Kaspa has bottomed at about 50% of its fair value using the May origin date, and we're sitting right about there now at about 55%. And so this should represent the rock bottom floor if this model holds up, sitting about 11 or 12 cents being the floor. Now, if we do happen to see 10 cents, I'm going to start to get worried. If we break 10 cents, I'm probably going to have to cut my losses there, because under no circumstance using any of these models does it appear to me, at least, that we should be breaking 10 cents. If you disagree, let me know why in the comments. But if we extend this out, I've done the calculations here, so I've crudely drawn in the corridor here manually. We should see, if we peak sometime in 2025, we should see a peak somewhere about, I think this is a little bit high, but between, say, 50 and 85 cents if we do hit the upper resistance band in 2025. The broader altcoin market should be peaking in late 2025. Will Kaspa do the same? Well, I don't know because it appears to be uncorrelated with that whole trend. Also wanted to look at the Kaspa-Bitcoin ratio. So when you take one power law, Bitcoin follows a power law, and divide it against another power law like Kaspa, the result should also be a power law. Now, granted, this power law is probably going to be a little bit sloppier over the short term, but over the long term, it should follow a power law, assuming that both inputs do as well. So here's what that looks like. This is the Kaspa divided by Bitcoin power law. We've got an R squared of 0.905. The chart here is looking a lot like, this is again deviation, or I should say percentage of fair value, and we have a bit of an arc to it, and we're at very, very low lows right now that we've only seen during this kind of anomalous period early on. This is a little strange, a little concerning maybe. I don't know. I hate to attach emotions to it, so make of it what you will. The fact that it follows kind of an arc kind of resembles the November Kaspa Power Law with the origin date being incorrect, so that's a little bit interesting. I'm a little bit more willing to be forgiving on the Kaspa Bitcoin Power Law simply because it's going to be a little bit sloppier because you've got two different markets, two different prices being divided into one, so it's probably going to be a little bit sloppier. But we're sitting at about 33% of fair value, which is quite low. If we look at that on TradingView here, if I draw in some support lines, you can see it's held this support 3 times until recently where it broke. That's a little bit concerning. We'll have to see what happens there. Could just be that Kaspa was outperforming during this period, which you can kind of see by the moving average. And maybe we're going to underperform here, and maybe we won't have a peak in this ratio until as far out as maybe 2026. Again, the broader altcoin peak should be sometime around this red bar here in, say, November or December of 2025. There's a case to be made that Kaspa could also peak during that period, but again, it's uncorrelated, so not really sure. Anyway, Wes-tone here signing off. Let me know what you think down in the comments so we can all try to gain a better understanding of what's going on. Have a good holiday break.